Hi, it is Resource Week at our Raw Material. I am Tavish Cardiff, here to talk about, first off, how we can be a resource, and then second, how to use the resources around us. But let's start with the self. Our own considered mind is actually the best resource we possess. And for many of us, that takes an egocentric view. And I'd like to set that aside for a little bit if we can and focus on just the self, just the defenseless, vulnerable experiences that we have been through in our own lives. Let's just take a look at the raw material. This is where we start to tap into what we came in with and the gifts that we bring. We don't often see them because we are so comfortable with them, so used to them. We give them so freely that we don't recognize that they are gifts for other people. And even if we are told that on a regular basis, it's often overlooked or we don't really take it in. So take a moment and just think about the qualities that other people have commented on favorably about you. Maybe you're a good listener. Maybe you are generous with your time or money. Maybe you take care of animals. Something about you that is giving in a way that you feel like everyone should be, or that's something that everyone would do. This is where we start to see our own gifts in the things that we expect from everyone else, especially if we find that other people aren't delivering those kinds of things. Then we start to see, oh, okay, this is unique to me. I'm just not seeing it because I want it to be present in everyone else. We devalue the things that we feel come easy. We devalue the things that we feel like everyone should just be and do. It's so easy in the land of resources, and especially when we're talking about raw material, to look at things like water, food, trees, lumber, forests, the kinds of things that we need to keep our ecosystem working and happy, and also keep human beings in their industrial pursuits. Resource becomes a spiritual dance of what man is creating and what the universe is asking us to do. Gandhi has a very famous saying that I love. There is enough in the world for everyone's need, but not everyone's greed. And my mother has often talked about just this idea or concept, kind of a fun exercise to think about, where you imagine that everyone in the world all of a sudden just got to do whatever they wanted and what that would look like. And if it would order the world perfectly, if everyone would wind up equally distributed where they should be. I don't know how that would actually happen, but it is fun to think about. And I have spent time wondering if we were able to reorder ourselves like that, would we wind up balanced? I just noticed behind me the Mustangs pennant. My husband got that this week. It was my junior high school, which was torn down a few years ago. Junior high, obviously one of the worst times in a kid's life. But as I've gone back and reworked my mentors, I'm looking at the things that I value from that time and the things that I enjoy and the things that I can bring forth as resources. So many things that I've learned and so many qualities of myself that come through when I think about the time as a Meadowbrook Mustang, the teachers that I had, the counselors that I had. Somehow I wound up as an office aide, so I got to know all the adults that worked in the office, and I got to wander the halls and go all over the place, offering myself up as a resource for the school. But as I see it now, I think I cut corners, and I think I probably gained a little more than I should have out of that, but I would expect they knew that. It gave me a sense of belonging. It gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a sense of being something that was valuable to the adults in my school. And when I was a kid, that was important to me, especially since I spent a lot of my time not being a resource to teachers. I could go into a lot of explanations trying to understand why I did some of the things that I did, why I acted some of the ways I acted. But that's an entire story on its own. Dipping into resources, humor was probably the only thing I had going for me at that time in my life, and I was pretty good at it. As the world has changed and my perspective has shifted, now that I'm here asking people to see the world defining these pillars for themselves and trying to get some sense of common sense by just creating a framework that we can all examine our own lives through, understanding ourselves better, and then naturally being able to hold the space for other people because we have a deeper understanding of what we need, what we want, what we value, and what we're trying to do. It keeps us from fighting. It keeps us from having all of the shame and blame. And I can't help getting a plug in for our raw material as a resource in and of itself. It's the ultimate resource. It is a free human toolkit. Just like in a video game, it energizes you. It's superpower when you have a personal relationship with each of these 12 pillars. The resource available in balancing your soul energy with your ego energy, understanding how you relate to the world, how you feel about the world, rather than just being in a constant state of reaction where you're upset and defending your choices, giving yourself the grace to fail, to let your intellect and your ego create a set of plans or ideas for you, and then let the universe show you something different. Let the universe use what you created to show you passion and purpose in a way that you just hadn't quite looked at it. When we're open to our roadblocks being signs, when we're open to the things that come in front of us as a resource, as a stop here and pay attention, then we start to see how many things are actually offered to us by the universe where we can stop, slow down, take a breath, and look a little more closely at what we're trying to do. Even in daily life, a lot of times we'll stub our toe or something like that. It's a warning to slow down. We just see it as a nuisance. But when we take the time to listen to that message, to plan our next few steps, we are avoiding calamity. We are avoiding stepping into something that's going to require a louder voice to get us to hear it. And the louder that voice has to get, the more detrimental the thing that we encounter might become. So listening to the tiny little stub toe is a lot easier than waiting for a car accident or an illness or any of the things that sideline us for longer than just a second. The other topic I want to hit on with resources is community. We have the opportunity through our raw material to build our raw material circles. What that is a community of people. It can be 2 people. It can really be 1, but it can be 2 people up to, I wouldn't do more than 12, but a group setting where you talk about the pillar, ground yourself, have a discussion from the perspective of the pillar, and just share what it means to you with somebody else. Just creating a safe, vulnerable, open space to explore this stuff and not only learn your own relationship, but start to see how someone else might experience it different and separate from you in a way that just pulls all the judgment out of it, pulls all the shame, pulls all the blame, and starts to let you see differences in people as cool, unique, even perfect little gems that each stem from our own lives, not that concept of normal that we're all still trying to meet. This is the last of the spiritual weeks. We start with music, we move to listening, and finally resources. Lining up those connections helps us take in the messages and the voice from the universe that we only feel shows up every once in a while. The truth is it's there all the time if we're looking for it and if we're paying attention to it. And there's a difference between doing that with our intellect and doing that with a mind-body connection. So the spiritual weeks teach us not only to open up the channel to listen, but to let that information move back and forth between us and the universe. Letting us test and play around with what information is given to us and what comes before us. And then as far as resources go, letting ourselves out as a resource with the things that we can give freely and easily, and being willing to accept what somebody else can give freely and easily. When we take those habitually formed responses out of our reactions and we recognize how cool it is to give something freely or how awesome it is to receive something and watch the person who's giving it feel good about giving. That's where we start to see magic come in. Nobody wants to feel obligated to give, but when it's your idea, when you feel good about it, when you're made to feel good about it, being a resource becomes something really cool. When you start to think about what you can give without it hurting you, then life becomes easier. You ever have that time when someone comes home and they need canned goods for a harvester's drive or something like that? You start to look at what you have and what you're willing to part with for people who need. And I always find it really cool what kind of meals I put together from that, or what I decide I'm willing to give up for them, or what I'm willing to go buy again for myself just because I want someone else to have something delicious and yummy. That's a digression into, my own taste in resources, but that's the beauty. Each of us have a different spin on what giving looks like, on what receiving looks like. And if we just know what that is, that alone is a resource. That alone lets us relax, breathe, and see where we can help. And when we can help easily, when it doesn't hurt us to help, and we do help, then all of a sudden we are helpful and we see ourselves as helpful. And it doesn't feel so put out when we do run into a temporary obligation. My Resource Week challenge is to think back on the compliments that you've been given and see yourself through the eyes of the people who have given them to you. See yourself not as you see yourself, not deflecting what is told to you, but give yourself a look through the eyes of what cool things other people have said. And if nobody said anything cool to you, look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself something cool, because every single one of us is absolutely perfect in this universe. Every one of us has been born into this life to serve as something. Only we can know what that is, and only we can get behind discovering it. We're the only ones that care enough about ourselves to devote that much time. And if we have people around us who are devoting too much time to us, they're lacking something in themselves. So turn it back around. Realize that we are our own best resource, our own considered thoughts, our own universe, the things that we pay attention to that come before us. Those are the keys to happiness. Those are the keys to living life with abundance. Those are the keys to manifesting the things that we want. And we start to breathe around those moments, take them in, pay attention, be grateful, be gracious, be giving. Life opens up in beautiful and magical ways. Thank you for being here talking about resources. You can find us at our website, ourrawmaterial.com. I will be back next week to talk about aligning with intention, so we start setting up the things that we want and manifesting. See you next week.